10 Dark Secrets About China. Number 10. Internet Borders. The Great Firewall of China is the vast apparatus that limits the country's internet. More specifically, its role in the internet censorship of China is to block access to selected foreign websites and slow down cross-border internet traffic. As a consequence, it limits access to foreign information sources and blocks foreign internet tools like Google, Facebook, and more. Why are we talking about the Great Firewall? Because at the beginning of July 2020, the censorship system crossed borders and reached Hong Kong. So, as part of the contentious new national security law, and allowed by the Hong Kong government, police powers now include online speech censorship. They can also force internet service providers to hand over user information and shut down platforms. There's no need to say that this is a historical moment. Hong Kong citizens are terrified by the prospect of Beijing-style internet controls, where residents are not just restricted, but monitored and punished for what they post online. The authorities can demand individuals and service providers to remove content, or directly access content deemed threatening to national security. Non-compliance can result in fines, confiscation of electronic devices, and imprisonment for company staff or individuals. Number 9. Gender imbalance. Gender inequality is a worldwide issue that's been going on for centuries. But we're not talking about opportunities and treatment, we're talking about the ratio of men to women in terms of population. The literal gender imbalance China has been facing in these past few years is a direct consequence of the government's strict regulations of decades gone by. In fact, we could say that most of it is due to the one-child policy in place from the late 1970s and early 80s till 2016. What happened to the country after almost 50 years of birth repression? First of all, let's understand why the policy was in place for so long. Back then, the growth rate of the population in China was rapidly approaching the 1 billion mark, so the government opted for limiting the great majority of family units to only one child each. As a consequence, many families still today recur to sex-selective abortion in favour of male fetuses. Traditionally, male children have been preferred because sons inherit the family name and property and are responsible for the care of elderly parents. To give you an idea, between 1980 and 2017, the total number of selective abortions was around 28.66 million. Today, the country has the world's most skewed sex ratio at birth, with about 33 million more men than women. Number 8. Birth defects. But gender imbalance is not the only problem when it comes to population growth. In 2017, the China Disabled Persons Federation reported that around 900,000 babies are born with birth defects annually. The incidence of birth defects grew from 87.8 per 10,000 people in 1996 to 149.9 per 10,000 in 2010. How? The cause can be traced back to 2003, from when China abolished compulsory prenatal checkups, according to health authorities. Additionally, the one-child policy has something to do with this too. In fact, according to the National Health and Family Planning Commission, when in 2016 couples were allowed to have 2 children again, the average age of women eligible for a second child was 35 years or more. A pregnancy in advanced maternal age could involve risks of biological deficiencies. But hopefully things are going to change. Last year, the China Medical Education Association and the World Health Organization launched a campaign to prevent birth defects. The goal is to spread knowledge on prenatal checkups during pregnancy. Number 7. Ghost towns. Some cities in China have an overpopulation problem, while others have the opposite issue: modern metropolises that seem completely abandoned. There are hundreds of ghost cities across the country, the majority of which are a part of China's larger plan to move up to 300 million citizens currently living in rural areas into urban locations. In doing so, the country hoped to become a visible powerhouse in the global economy. The Kangbashi district in Inner Mongolia is the most famous example. The city has been developed for at least 14 years. Residential skyscrapers, a modern museum and library and schools fill the place, but no people do. However, according to photographer Kai Kaemura, who explored these new developments for his collection Unborn Cities, instead of building small developments that grow in accordance with local industries, these new Chinese cities are built to the point of near completion before introducing people. Dinny McMahon, the author of China's Great Wall of Debt, adds the phenomenon has been driven by the debt splurge after the global financial crisis. Local governments around the country tried to stimulate their economies by building more infrastructure, but it seems to have failed miserably. Number 6. Treatment of dissidents. Last year, the Human Rights Watch, an international non-governmental organisation that conducts research and advocacy on human rights, released a long report highlighting the human rights violations allegedly committed by the Chinese government. So, with a government that maintains tight control over the internet and a lot of media, arbitrary detention, imprisonment, and enforced disappearance are commonplace. Not to mention the increasing control of the authorities on mass surveillance systems. As reported by the Human Rights Watch in 2018, the government has collected people's biometrics, including DNA and voice samples, to develop a nationwide reward and punishment system known as the social credit system. Stories of alleged abuses on political dissidents have been going on for a while. Ji Sai-zun, a veteran Chinese activist, died in 2014 in police custody after being denied the medical parole he requested for months. Number 5. Religion repression. The same Human Rights Watch report highlighted the government's strong alleged repressions against some religious groups in the country. Since then, many other organisations and media, such as Amnesty International, the BBC, The Guardian, and The New York Times, have been covering the topic. By now, chances are most of you have heard about the Uyghurs, an insulated ethnic minority in Western China. The Uyghurs are a small, predominantly Muslim group. Right now, the UN Human Rights Committee claims about 1 million Uyghurs are held indefinitely in re-education camps. And yes, it's as bad as it sounds. People are apparently subjected to totalitarian indoctrination in an attempt to erase their identity, their language, their culture, and their religion. The Chinese government has denied all the accusations. Still, in 2017, President Xi Jinping issued a directive that restricts religious practice to 5 officially recognised religions, classifying many religious groups outside the government control as evil cults. This allows the state to harass said groups, with the country apparently increasingly cracking down on Buddhists and Christians too, according to reporters from The Observer. Number 4. Executions. China is the world's leading executioner, according to Amnesty International. Since the government keeps its data classified, we can't know the precise extent of China's use of the death penalty. However, as Amnesty claims, allegedly, the country carries out thousands of executions per year. It may shock you to know that the majority of executions are for drug-related crimes. Drug offences in China can lead to extremely severe penalties. The Chinese authorities focus their attention particularly on foreigners who might smuggle illicit substances from abroad. There have been cases in which China executed foreigners too, though rarely those from the West. In 2009, British national Akmal Sheikh was executed for carrying 4 kilograms of heroin. And as recently as January 2019, a Chinese court upped Canadian Robert Lloyd Schellenberg's sentence for a failed attempt to smuggle 225 kilograms of methamphetamine from 15 years in prison to execution after he appealed against the court's verdict. Number 3. Prisoners used for transplants. Do any of you remember the 2005 movie The Island, or the novel by British author Kazuo Ishiguro, Never Let Me Go? Both works present a dystopian world in which clones are used for organ harvesting for wealthy people. Now replace the clones with convicts. That's what's been going on in China for the past few years, according to the independent people's body, the China Tribunal. They released the result of its investigation on the allegations of forced organ harvesting from prisoners of conscience in the country. According to this report, about 1.5 million detainees in Chinese prisons were killed for their organs to serve a booming transplant trade worth around $1 billion a year. The tribunal concluded that many people have died indescribably hideous deaths for no reason, that more may suffer in similar ways. There is no evidence of the practice having been stopped, and the tribunal is satisfied that it is continuing. It's also been alleged that among those killed, there were members of religious minorities such as the Falun Gong. Number 2. Entertainment censorship. Okay, the fact that China applies censorship basically on every industry on its territory is not exactly a secret. The government controls all media, from newspapers and books to TV and cinema. And if you don't respect their censorship criteria, you're out. Liu Ye, for example, is one of many filmmakers who's been banned from making films over the years because of the controversial topics in his movies, such as issues of sexuality, gender, and obsession. But those are the country's rules, so what can you do about them? Not much. Especially when Hollywood itself has to give in to Chinese censorship. A recent report by the free speech charity PEN America claimed Hollywood is censoring films to avoid losing access to China's lucrative box office market. Fair enough, considering that American films earned $2.6 billion in China last year, with Disney's Avengers finale Endgame making $614 million there. Speaking of which, Penn said that for 2016's Doctor Strange, Marvel changed the nationality of a major Tibetan character for fear of jeopardizing the title's chances of success in China. It was also pointed out how in a 2019 trailer for the forthcoming Top Gun sequel, the Taiwanese flag patches, featured on Tom Cruise's jacket in the original film, have mysteriously disappeared. Number 1. Human sacrifice. Before you go around telling people that China makes human sacrifices, let's make it clear right away that there is evidence this happened, but thousands of years ago. Discovered in August of 2020, a 4,300-year-old fortress city, known as Shimao, is challenging traditional narratives about China's early history. Research on the site in China's Henan province has been going on for years, since the fortress is crowned by a stepped pyramid more than 200 feet tall. Only recently, the ongoing dig has revealed an inner sanctum with painted murals, jade artifacts and gruesome evidence of human sacrifice, a still kneeling skeleton aligned facing north, with its hands crossed and secured in front of the body. The team of Chinese archaeologists estimated the person was sacrificed around the time of the late Shang dynasty, 1600 BC to 1046 BC. Archaeologists have recently discovered details of human sacrifices during this period recorded as carvings on artifacts. One of those relics from Zhang described a method of placing humans and animals in a pit in an upright posture in preparation for sacrifice. Still, this is the first tangible evidence of Chinese ancient sacrifices. The discovery of a kneeling victim in combination with the glyph describing the upright placement of sacrifices suggests that the unfortunate victim was indeed sacrificed. But to what, we don't know. So those were 10 dark secrets about China. Did you know any of these already? Let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to All Time 10s if you haven't done so already for more great videos like the one on screen right now.